it was a fat intel dart coming through there. As Water Buffalo spams through, it seems as if they're just going to continue to collect more players in that mid position, and they're all starting to circle now. Has it? These players on the alpacas are starting to become piranhas in the way that they're trying to find their prey, jump spawn to see exactly where they are, and Grady now getting ready to swing.
Yeah, Grady, like a polar bear, bangs their chest, the beast on the icebox. It's only Coops left, and they're already dead to rights. A flawless round from Alpacas, and I think Piranhas is the best way to describe them, because they almost encircled that mid position from all ends of the map. A push from B, A, and mid respectively to enclose the space and create so much pressure, which USAE were unable to try and deal with. And yeah, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Looking at Alpaca's comp, you think, you know, maybe not having the Sage, they'd be forfeiting a little bit of control. But instead, they've just taken these duels head on and have been able to win out time and time again. And
thinking back to the last map, I thought that the kind of the frags that they were losing out were quite cheap, and I was like in my head thinking, oh, it's just they've been cheesed with like a shorty or a shotgun. But again, these problems seem to be chronic, and it's continuous. Not free picks, but certainly cheap ones.
Yeah, USAE will just be going for a full frontal this time, heading straight in towards the site, but Buffalo cuts down Alcade. Shot dart will be blocked by that barrier orb, and you know, once again, we're seeing the value that Sage can give here. It's just how much further does that conversion go? 4 ultimates available. Hunter's Fury to fall back on. It will be one of the win conditions in this round. As well, we have the Tour de Force holding down on those longer sight lines. We've already seen a Poison Cloud get dropped, and it seems as if these players will be looking for a fast engagement on that more reserved approach.
Yeah, they do tap the spike, but the thing is, though, the time is so low, that now the Viper has become so effective in this post plan. It doesn't matter though, because Hoss will be able to fire off those warning shots and get even more. We are going to see USAE pick up their second round, trying to get out with a rifle. They can't do it, but nonetheless, they're certainly going to get a lovely round off the back of that.
Those shots are more than just a warning in the end. Hoss able to find 4 of them. Very nicely done, and just like that, we're now seeing USAE start to build some kind of a resurgence. Alpacas already on 6 will be feeling happy with their efforts this side of the half, but by the same margin, won't want to let slip a few more of those now. USAE showing the direct approach and using the utility they have in post-plant was a very effective game plan, and however, it's not one which will get repeated necessarily here in the opening stages. I like the idea of the null command to stop Wells from dropping and maybe shut down the ultimate on the opposite side, but it doesn't find anything, and now that's an ultimate gone. And a player dropped as a result.
Oh, T-Dog now just firing off this operator, seeing what they can find. The L-Drone now clearing these closer angles will be pretty decent, and it will work out in their favour. Now USAE really fighting back in towards this one, and they seem to be extremely clinical.
Yeah, we have to remember that USAE have invested 3 of those ultimates on this round, however. The Res, the Pit, the Hunter's Fury, all of these chess pieces being put on the board, or should I say knocking Alpacas off of this with what they have invested so far. You expect them to take the round at the very least. It'll just be how much damage Alpacas can do from this situation, but yeah, you then got to be looking in towards the next round and what can be found further on. Water Buffalo already getting the first. Ma is close by towards Grady here, and how many players are going to be dropping to this spike? Something else to consider when we look at damage.
Well, seems to be only 2 at this moment in time. And when you think towards that, at least the operator did get out. In terms of the economy, it doesn't look amazing, but it's certainly not bad either. So in terms, that's not going to be the worst. But Alpacas don't have a full buy.
No, they don't at this point in time, and it's gonna be difficult. It's the first time that we've actually seen them in this situation, I think, so far in the game. We saw, you know, Blade Storms and the like invested simply to try and cause problems, create damage. Once more, the 0 point will be invested towards Belt, allows T-Dog to just get let off and look for some fight, some duels, but it's not one that they can win. Hoss is aware of that aggression, something which USAE have really tapped into now. The conditioning from this defense is to always look for an opening duel, but they've managed to find them instead in numbers.
Yep, and they have found, to this point, we're 3-person advantage, as well as the spike going down. These players on ALPACAS going to struggle to retake in towards this, although they do take out the Jet.
Yeah, that is going to be a big pickup, but once more, it's Water Buffalo on the retake, trying to get something done. Having your Sova player up is good because you can initiate back towards the site. KO here as well with utility to call upon, but it doesn't look to count for much. Traded out 1-for-1, and you can't afford to do that in this situation. Both players need to be chiming in with more than just their weight in gold, and it doesn't happen. USAE building themselves a lifeline from this attack and narrowing that score within 2.
They have really fought back in towards this one. It has been an underdog story for somewhat most of this map, has it? And if USAE can rescue it to an even scoreline for the next half, I mean, you're pretty much buzzing with the way that things have gone.
Yeah. And you also have to look at the momentum that USAE then have as well, right? I think they're a team which relies heavily on having things swing in their favor in that department specifically. When we saw the beginning of the previous game, they looked incredibly comfortable, but now we're seeing that disruption come through, and ALPACA's starting to feel the brunt of it. Hunter's Fury coming through to set them off on the front foot, Bladestorm to follow it up, but Grady finds that first kill, and now we have to see what the response is like from USAE.
ALPACAS have responded well to the initial push here, rotating a lot of players. And with that being said, there's a lot of USAE players just waiting to swing. And well, once they get swung, they are going to be picking up these frags. There's only 2 players left now on USAE. They've just seen the foot of one. Winnie Winston holds the Guardian. Will they be a Guardian of the site? Yes, they will. 1 left here. It's all up to Cubes. But now they've brought it down to 1 versus 2.
So same 2 initiator players coming through, but this time the retake will be a lot easier. 1 versus 2. And well, as a matter of fact, it's going to be on the opposite side of the map where we actually see that happen. Coops could isolate a duel here. Wells stepping out into the open and nearly getting punished for it, but it won't happen. Time ticking incredibly low. The urgency here being felt. A great fragment to deny that plant from coming through, but bullets do get traded. Barrier orb still being held onto. A big recon here will get a ping on towards Cubes, who now is all too aware of that position. A secondary tag will be a death sentence. Water Buffalo finds it, and ALPACA finally stretch their lead out in this first half.
Yeah, they will move in towards the next one with at least a minimum advantage here, has it? So things looking extremely good for them in terms of the score count. But again, if you're still a USAE fan, you're thinking to yourself, I mean, yeah, it's 1 blip on the scoreboard in the past 5 rounds, but realistically, winning 3 out of 2, they're still looking pretty comfortable.
Yeah, and you also have to consider the way that the previous round played out. It was incredibly close in the end, and actually USAE also showing that they understand the game a little bit better in the way that it's been played out in recent times, because they expect that aggression to happen every single time. That we see USAE take some kind of an advantage. ALPACAS want to immediately trade it back, and even if they have player numbers, they still go through, so it's ridiculous.
Well, 2 players swing from mid, they'll get another, and now with it in a 4 versus 2 scenario, Hoss just hides in towards the corner, Hazard.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, though. Like, ALPACAS have an advantage, but they continue to stretch it once again. Water Buffalo will be hearing all of this going on right now as Crooks is making their advance towards B. With time left on the clock, that Viper's Pit perhaps being held onto for a moment longer, but doesn't end up happening. They want to try and play the numbers here as best as possible. Toxic Screen already being spotted out. This engagement with Grady being taken. But it's the Phantom on the opposite end that wins it. 8-4, and for the second time so far in this series, it's ALPACAS that are able to find that kind of lead.
Yeah, they are finding it pretty comfortable, Hazard, with the way that things are going. I mean, at the same time, though, the regression, it seems, I hate to say simple because I don't like to use that word, but it certainly seems one-dimensional is maybe something I would say. And USAE did have a read on it, but they're just, again, it's coming down to these duels that they're just losing out on.
Yeah. And it's just ridiculous, the aggression we're seeing from ALPACAS. Relentless is the way to describe it best. We saw it from them on their defender's side on Bind. The same comes through here on Icebox, and USAE haven't been able to contain it. That 0 point forces Hoss to commit the rendezvous initially to stop themselves from being in a situation from which they cannot recover, and Winston all too gladly will take this space in towards the side, has the shorty up on the belt position and is able to find that kill, or rafters should I say. Doesn't matter either way, they do get dropped, and we're down to a 4 versus 4 with that spike now planted.
Lovely shot dart just gets dropped on top of Grady there. As we do see the spike being confirmed, it's about how open it is, especially with this Viper's wall that's going to really aid these defenders in retaking. Already they tap that spike, but they're already past half. They need to swing hard, they need to swing accurately, as they don't find these players too well. Coops does get wells, there goes Water Buffalo, and these players are falling apart. T-Dog now has to clutch up and will do so, and that's the hard problem.
ALPACAS win both pistol rounds in this game. No mistake made whatsoever. USAE were able to find their defender-sided pistol on Bind, but cannot repeat that effort here on Icebox. It got incredibly close, but in the 1 versus 2, T-Dog comes up clutch, and such low HP left on Koobs in that final duel. A very difficult one to get over the line indeed. A big investment coming through from the attackers as well, and this is the issue when you're on the defenders and you're playing up against an attacking team that wins their pistol. It's difficult because the opportunity to go for a force of your own is few and far between, and already they're seeing this push come through. There is a stack here on the site, but it's one which Winston has already built a crack into.
Oh no, but look at this. Crook could maybe do some work here with the judge, although they miss out on that opportunity. The spike now being committed, and Hoss now having to dip out, thinking about second guessing whether they want to go through from rafters and will instead go from TVs. This headhunter, well, needs to hunt the last 2 remaining heads. They only had 2 bullets in the chamber, and they are gone. 10 for the half now, and with ALPACAS again moving on towards double figures. I'm having deja vu after this first 2 rounds of this half.
Yeah, and if the last game is anything to go by, then USAE should only have 1 more round left in them. The question is, do we see that come up here in the bonus or some other time? Is there still an opportunity for them to close that gap? It is smaller than the one that we saw last time around. I guess it's exactly the same for this stage in the game, but you know, only 6 between the 2 teams at this point in time. It was 8 when ALPACAS found their way towards match point previous, and could soon too grow to that kind of level. Another A stack comes through. It was able to, you know, shut down quite a few of those weapons on the previous, but this time the spike is heading entirely elsewhere. And we'll just have to see if it'll end up getting planted before or after these players do make their way over. Instead, it's a bullet planted between the eyes of Jet, and Grady will claim yet another.
Yeah, the spike now planted. Hoss close by to get in. Does get an opportunity, but just can't find the head of Wells. Will do now. And now we go in towards a 4 versus 3. The US Army Esports now looking extremely well and extremely comfortable here. Although Grady does pounce back, there is certainly an opportunity where this could all fall apart here. And it does look to come alive. Only 1 player remaining. That is the Sova of Water Buffalo. But they won't be drinking much for this round as US Army Esports pounce back.
Yeah, and it was a great response from USAE in the retake as well, especially after losing that anchor player in towards mid. When we saw them get some control in towards kitchen, it makes things incredibly difficult then, knowing that there's someone lurking in the back lines. ALPACAS had a nice setup with control of that area of the map, and as well, USAE entirely conceded space of the site. Hoss didn't even look to try and take that initial engagement until we saw an overstep come through from Wells towards that spawn position, towards Snowman. So very nicely done from them in the end, and that gap now reduced, the deficit only 5.
The Vipers Pit now invested in towards this, although they are going to see, oh, okay, pardon me, apparently I heard the Vipers Pit, but it didn't get actually used. It will be the attackers to use theirs though, and they are certainly causing chaos on the site, as all these players are starting to find one another in towards a position. I think, in fact, actually the Vipers Pit invested was on up above Has. I don't know if you can just see it to the left there, it just wasn't, it didn't creep on towards the site.
Ma had already seen T-Dog. That wall, so frustrating from the position, or the edge of the pit, I should say, stopping them from being able to take the duel. Wells trades out. Grady inside the pit with the judge in hand has to be the main issue here, however. And it could be USAE descending in towards an inevitable death. It's Wells instead who finds a quadra, and ALPACAS claim their 11th. A nice investment of the ultimate on a lower buy, all things considered, and that could have just pushed the boat out and committed USAE here to a struggling situation. The economy really not sitting well for them at this point in time, and it seems as if it may just be a formality. ALPACAS trudging away with this one.
Yeah. And it seems as if I mean, that's the point here. There's been no realistically good breaks for US Army Esports to take a deep breath and discuss exactly what's going on. As they seem to just fall to the wayside, fall to the ALPACAS as they start to become carnivorous. ALPACAS at this point, as the shock darts come through. Winnie Winston does get another. They can't bounce straight on towards Crook, but they certainly will start to find these players' heads.
I was just about to say, you really favour the shock darts to be doing damage there, but it's the fragment which will claim. Flawless round from ALPACAS, and they make that difference in weaponry and utility show. The fact they're able to set up and so efficiently dismantle and dismember those players on the USAE side shows exactly what they're capable of. 12-5, and if they find this one, it will be an exact repeat of what we saw in that first game, 13-5 on Bind. Hoss on the operator once again, but I think we haven't really seen too much from him on that weapon so far in this series, I think it's fair to say, which is something perhaps, you know, both of these teams have lacked. The operator not getting too much screen time, which really makes a change.
Yeah, it does, and it's nice, and I guess somewhat a little bit, I was going to say, renewed somewhat viewing of Valorant with less operator usage here. At this moment in time, though, the operator is getting plenty of usage. Yeah, will come up, getting a water buffalo now essentially in a 1 versus 4, as Wells will drop. The players trying to find the Sova, and will do so.
Yeah, looking for a player that was never going to peak them. It's a shot in the side of the head instead, and USAE go one better than they did on the previous outing. I'm not too sure what the picks dictated in terms of, you know, who had selected what maps. I know that ALPACAS had chosen to begin Bind on attack, and, well, it's an attacking side in which USAE will get us started here on Icebox, and, well, potentially Breeze if it goes the distance, but currently not looking likely to do so. We'll need a lot more miraculous plays, a lot more heroics from Hoss on this operator if it is to be the case. Spots out Buffalo on the jump peak, but T-Dog's already found a kill through mid, and this is so incisive from ALPACAS.
Yeah, already finding so many picks, numerous indeed. There's only one player left, and it's all up to Hoss. They've been identified here with the trademark. We'll get one, but will it be in vain as we now look towards where the spike's being planted, and it will be on A. And I mean, retaking with an AWP is never something you want to be playing against.
Yeah, and retaking up against an op as well. T-Dog popping the tour de force, but never necessary. Doesn't even come close to it in that situation. 13-6, ALPACAS run away with it very convincingly in the end. Both maps as they draw it out 2-0.
Yeah, and I mean, has one thing that I want to talk about after that one is just the sheer pace of the ALPACAs. Everything about it. If you want to call it aggression, if you want to call it fast pacing, it was fast, it was aggressive, it was furious, and that's just the way that we saw the kind of personality come through from their team.
Yeah, we saw a nice spacing in terms of ultimates as well. I think it's something really easy to gloss over when you consider how exactly it was that the game played out, but it was a very nice investment from them in certain places to give better opportunities at winning out rounds. The Vipers pit, for example, used a couple of times on defense to ease up the amount of players that they could be using to hold one site rather than the other, especially towards A. We saw that anchoring come through a little bit more with the pit. And also in the post plant, we saw it used as well to convert rounds where we saw ALPACAs really not with the credits, the investment that would warrant them around win, yet they were able to do it regardless. So really nicely done from them. I think as well on the flip side, USAE, we saw like one of the rounds they were able to pick up were huge investment, a huge upfront in terms of ultimates for them to get that one over the line, and then perhaps being left a bit short-handed in the follow-up, I suppose. So yeah, few and far between from USAE. Still signs of promise there, but for the most part, ALPACAs deserved winners in this one.
Yeah, I would agree. I think as well, maybe one to talk about was the default from US Army Esports. It looked good, but the thing is though, it started to get read into so easily by ALPACAs. It was almost like they had a sixth sense when it came to playing this game.
Yeah, and we didn't see any timeouts whatsoever from either team in this matchup. Both of them happy to just carry on with the momentum. And I think in terms of a viewer perspective, sometimes it's nice to just see two teams that want to duke it out and are very comfortable to just see it through. However, when you then look at the USAE perspective and how things panned out for them with, only being able to string together 11 rounds across both of those games, you have to maybe somewhat question their use of or lack of usage of the timeouts there to perhaps benefit them a little bit greater and adapting to what exactly it was that ALPACAs were doing, which, like you mentioned, was just a lot of aggression, time and time again, constantly pushing all ends of the map, and especially from the defense, not something which we see too often unless a team is really feeling confident.
Yeah, well, I think we do have the interview ready with one of the players, Hazard. I think you're going to be taking this one because, you've got a little interview series of your own. But I'm going to quickly throw to that one and we'll see exactly what this player thinks after that match.
Yeah, and I am joined here with Grady from ALPACAS, the controller player coming off the back of that 2-0 win. Like Cairo was saying, yeah, I've done a few interviews before, but not usually on a live format, so it's nice to have you on with us. How are you feeling immediately off the back of that victory?
Oh, I'm feeling great. Me and the team played extremely well. I think we worked together, used our util right, pushed where we needed to, and played the map with what was required of us. So.
Coming into this game, did you feel as if the map would go the way that it did, or both of those two maps that you saw, or were you perhaps expecting the competition to be a little bit more fierce, I suppose?
Well, we have a long history of competition with Army Esports, and all the other MGL teams, and we've had a pretty large history of success. Bind and Icebox are two of our most prepared maps as well. So going into it, we were fairly confident.
Then going into Breeze, the map that we didn't actually end up seeing get played, if it did somehow go to that third map, how are you feeling on that map in comparison to the other two that we already saw from you?
Uh, Breeze feels mostly dependent on CT side. Breeze is an extremely CT sided map, and it comes down to whether your operators can execute or not. So with Joe, with Weenie Winston and T Dog, our op players, I'm extremely confident we could lock down both sides and secure the rounds we need CT side, and then just win the game
Yeah.
from T side from there. Just collect the rounds we need.
Yeah, just A couple more questions. I think one of the most important ones that I'll have to ask here is in terms of you guys got off to perhaps a bit of a slow start on that first map, but once you were able to find, a few successive rounds, it didn't look like you were turning back whatsoever. Is that just sort of something that happens usually, or how are you guys feeling coming straight into this one?
Oh, our team is fully dependent on the energy going on. So,
Hmm.
I mean, and that happens for a lot of competitive environments too, is just as soon as you get the energy going, you got to keep it there, and once you hit the roll, just keep keep going. That works for us super well, and it happens to us in the past too, where the opposite happens as well, where if we start losing rounds, comms go quiet. But yeah, it's just about keeping the energy.
Final question before I let you go has to be about the style of play that you guys adopted as well, and the amount of aggression that we saw from you, namely on that defender's side. There are a couple of times where we saw USAE read into it a little bit, but you guys still doubled down and kept going for it. What perhaps was the reasoning behind that?
Um, Honestly, confidence. I'm the IGL as well, and sometimes it's just about letting people take as much as they can get. We were able to get a lot of map control, so we're able to contain them and just know where they are. So we know what we have to hold, where they're gonna peak, and we're confident in winning our gunfights. That's what happened. So worked out well.
Yeah. No, and it was a convincing performance on both maps in the end. So thank you very much for your time here with the interview, Grady. Do you have any final shout outs before we depart from the broadcast?
Yeah, shout out to Moose for carrying us. He was super warm, our best player by far, and he just played really well today.
All right. Thank you, man, for the interview. And we'll be heading back to the
Well,
desk. But enjoy the win. Enjoy
thanks
the
for
rest of
having
your
me.
evening.
Oh, that was awesome to hear from Grady Hazard. A great interview. But that is us actually starting to draw things to a close here on the MGL broadcast. I mean, quite a fast-paced broadcast, it has to be said.
Yeah, I mean, things did wrap up pretty quick in the end, right? It was a convincing performance that we saw from ALPACAS, winning both of them out. Like Grady was saying, they felt confident, they showed up, they played to their strengths, and unfortunately for USAE, they weren't able to contain it. So a very dominant performance from them in the end, and they'll be feeling very happy with that result, I'm sure.
Yeah, certainly will. And to let you folks know, this is us finally done with this week's broadcast with Valorant. Next week we do have League of Legends. That will be round about the same time as tonight. If you want to get involved with MGL, there is a Discord which you can join. It is Military Gaming League. That is for after a discord.gg/Military Gaming League. And also, if there is military Overwatch players, stand by for an upcoming announcement for an event which is taking place during the holiday season. I imagine all these players will be wanting to get involved.
Oh, 100%. I've been on the Overwatch hype train recently, it must be said. I've
Yeah.
perhaps not been spending as much time on Valorant as I had used to, but with the new act coming up, there's plenty to look forward to, both, I guess, in the server and here on Military Gaming League. So that's all from myself and Cairo for tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. As he mentioned, go join the Discord, League of Legends next week, same time, same place. Thanks, guys, and we'll catch you all then.